Hello friends, as you well know, we are in the middle of the series which is focusing upon the English essay and the English essay that started in a major way in the 18th century and flowered into its own in the 19th century, early 19th century in particular. And we have for our lecture today Professor Richa Bajaj, who teaches English in Hindu College, Delhi University, and she has already given very important lectures focusing upon stressing in fact the idea of essay as a significant literary form, a form that is exclusive to, maybe I'm wrong, but exclusive to the English literature. I don't think it would be, at least in our literature today, barring a few exceptions. And the English essay is marked by, as she has already explained to you in the previous lectures, it's marked by what is called levity, superficialness of a kind that is actually not superficial but teasing, and that makes it very readable, and this readability part makes us go very close to the author, whosoever we discuss as an author of English essay. So with this brief comment, I pass on the baton to Professor Bajaj, and I request her to start her lecture.
Thank you, Professor Prakash. Indeed, I think the English essay is unique in it, and one of its kind, because it is one also referred to as periodical essay. But what it really means is that these are conversational essays, right? Their tone, you call them conversational essays, because here the writer is not bound by any ideological stance. The writer is not even committed to any kind of political debate or holding or a kind of political opinion and then expressing it, because these are supposed to be, they were published in journals which were supposed to be tea time sort of entertainment pieces. So they were always meant to be popular, commercial, humorous, something that was a light read. So you will notice that these essays, particularly these essays, I don't mean other essays by Hazlitt or others, other essays. What I mean is that all these essayists who were otherwise writing serious stuff in journals and writing serious kind of essays, taking up one or another issue or a topic of debate and thoroughly analyzing them in essays. Here in the English essay or the periodical essay that they wrote, they were treating it very lightly, and even if it was the same subject, often they would not take any political position in these essays. And when they spoke here, you find that these are not very long pieces. These are not like exhaustive pieces where the writer is trying to analyze every aspect of a situation or a topic. Here the writer is giving you a sort of popular popular meaning of a particular word or a popular opinion, and then giving his statement on it, and that's about it. So in a way, I think that these are essays which speak about the culture of the period and the intellectual life of the time, and in the sense that writers, thinkers, all these people, intellectuals, sat around these round tables and sat in coffee houses and spoke about miscellaneous things, and these they found that were relevant. Now interesting thing is that they found it relevant enough. I mean, one would think, why are they even writing about it? If it's a frivolous matter, if it is superficial, then why are they even writing about it? That could be the first question asked. The point is that they're trying to also, I think, evolve a kind of culture of the times. What is it that you should think? What is it that you should wear? How is it that you should behave? Should you give a second thought to what is the popular thinking? So they are building the kind of popular imagination. They are also building a kind of a very civilized cultural space wherein rationality is pronounced. Now in most of these essays you will find that the principle that they apply to all of their discussions is the secular rational principle. They are always looking at things from the idea of its reasonableness, sometimes critiquing in fact utilitarianism also. Too much of utilitarianism, like usefulness cannot be the criteria. Especially when you will realize that the 18th century essays were, even 18th century, for instance, English essays still took up these issues, about utility, about certain values in life. They were value centric, what was the moral code of conduct, etc. Now the writer that I've chosen for discussion today, William Hazlitt, actually is a part of both the 18th and the 19th century. So his period, he's born in 1778, so very much his building up years are those of the 18th century, but his actual writing career falls in the 19th century till he dies in about 1830. So he is seen as a romantic essayist, right? But he carries the tradition of the 18th century thought and tries to, and especially this collection that I'm going to discuss today, the round table pieces. The round table was basically a collection of essays put together in a book form by Hazlitt and his friend Leigh Hunt. These essays were initially published in the Examiner, which Leigh Hunt used to bring out, the journal. So, all these journal articles were put together in a form of a book, which they called, they thought of the title and they decided the round table, which is very unlike any book title. The round table is they found to be the apt name for their book. Now, we'll come to that, about the title in a bit. But before we do that, I wanted to discuss with you how Hazlitt is at one level a romantic essayist, but at another he's also following the English essay style, because when they put together these essays, they wanted to bring out essays on the lines of Tatler and Spectator. So they had that in mind, and which is why the essay pieces in the round table, they belong to the English essay kinds. It's not to say that Hazlitt did not write other kinds of essays. He wrote essays for the Examiner, as I said. He also was reporting for the Morning Chronicle. As a journalist, he worked there. He was also writing in other journals. For instance, he was working, there was the magazine called The Times, so he also contributed essays to that. So the idea is that it's not like he did not write the other stuff. He wrote essays for the Times where, for instance, he expressed his political opinion and he offered criticism on the political corruption around, etc. He was an idealist, so he remained an idealist till the end, and continued his politics as an idealist. Didn't turn to Tory politics. One of the few romantics actually who didn't die early or did not turn to Tory politics, right? So in a way, Hazlitt holds that unique stance, and he was a very venerated sort of essayist in the 20th century. In his own time, he was considered an essayist, but he didn't get that kind of due that he thought he would, because his later life, when he thought that literature would be able to support him, his later life was marked with poverty and sickness, because he would not turn to, and he got scathing criticism from Tory writers and thinkers who looked at him, who looked down upon him and called all these people, Lamb and Hazlitt, the Cockney school critics or essayists. They were looked down upon because of their politics and because of how they stuck to their political radical stance as idealists, and offering that kind of offering a critique of present political order. So it's not that in his own day he had a very famous life, for instance, like Wordsworth did. So, and he never moved to the right ever, didn't join the Tory group ever. So that also made sure that he continued to be marginalized by the mainstream field of literature and political thought. And yet, even his later life, he devotes his time and efforts entirely in bringing out, a biography of Napoleon Bonaparte. And he writes this 4-volume life of Napoleon, and a work that did not actually bring him much recognition or any kind of financial sustenance or recompense, but it actually shows and reveals his commitment, to the principles of liberty that the French Revolution actually represented. So, in a way, you find that this is a complete prodigy of the French Revolution. Much like your Shelley and others. So, and here is a man who's able to, sustain it in the form of the essay. and he prioritizes imagination even when he is writing the essay. You see, you would think that a poet prioritizing imagination is natural, right? But what would you expect from an essayist? An essayist, you would think, would probably prioritize, for instance, thought, ideas, and analysis, etc. But for Hazlitt, imagination was very central, and poetry was central to understanding life. And he felt that knowledge remains incomplete unless it gets tied to imagination. So he's also a philosopher. I mean, Hazlitt, really speaking, is an essayist primarily, but he was also a painter. He started, in fact, his career as a painter initially, and he thought that he would, he went to France and he tried to also learn the art, and he painted. Initial works of his are all his paintings. He also was a journalist and gave lectures, so was a lecturer too. But primarily in English literature, we know him as an essayist of the Romantic period, as a kind of an idealist essayist. Some call him a humanist essayist, right? So these are different tags that we apply to Hazlitt, but overall he's basically a person of the Romantic period who carries the tradition of the 18th century thought, and has, in this particular case, the Round Table collection that I'm going to discuss with you today. In this collection, he's trying to write essays on the lines of Tatler and Spectator, which were very precisely what we call the English essay, right? Does it make sense to you?
It's a very interesting point you are making, particularly with respect to secularism, because the essay is secular in its content. It's an essay about the surface of life, and surface of life you can't seek any kind of transcendence there.
Right.
There what you will do is, you will talk about everyday situations and you will comment on them. And if you are satirizing or creating humor out of it, then Tories, that is the people who are devoted entirely to very serious kind of writing and talking about the past and talking about the present, as if the times were great, and these youngsters called romantics, they are in a way attacking all this paraphernalia, and therefore Tories I think are there to attack all the romantics. And when you talked about their unpopularity in certain circles, elitist circles, then I was thinking of Keats. Keats was so angry with these people because they would always discourage him. Shelley was under attack, and I didn't know about this detail. It's an important detail you pointed out, Dr. Bajaj, that he wrote a 4-volume biography of Napoleon.
Yes.
So he was a villain.
And this is in his later life, when he was in poverty.
Yes.
Like somebody would, you can see a lot of distortion. People can break under, buckle under pressure also. And he was poor, he was sick, and yet he thought he wanted to continue with this kind of committed life, and he devoted himself to Napoleon was his hero. So, and so was he for almost all romantics, right? So, and the French Revolution was this kind of awakening for the English writer, right? So, he continued to write these four volumes of, work, despite knowing that he's been under attack by all the Tories, and fully aware that he's not getting any recognition for it, and obviously no financial recompense for it.
In fact, that gave him a certificate of appreciation, that people were attacking him. They found him a threat, and he was a threat, standing threat to the ideological stance of the Tories at that time. And romantics were very popular in India, friends. We have discussed that point elsewhere. And Hazlitt particularly, as Dr. Bajaj has pointed out, was very a well-known figure in the 19th century literature. And in Hindi, for instance, this is a piece of information I would like to share, that Hindi writers talked a great deal about him till the 1950s. Later on, they might have forgotten for the same reasons that Tories did not do it. That's a separate story. But I think this point is well made, that he is for the revolution, whether it's French or any other, and that he is talking about the manners on the other side, and the manners in fact bring out the superficiality of the middle class that is attacking England at that time, particularly at the level of Tories.
Right. And Hazlitt has written a lot of essays other than the roundtable ones that I plan to discuss, but he's written other essays. For instance, he's written, his literary criticism really includes, he's written a book on characters of Shakespeare's plays that came out in 1817. Then again, there were these lectures that he gave, lectures on English poets, that was brought out in a book form in 1818. All these lectures, like Coleridge, he gave these lectures, and these lectures were then published in book form. So lectures, another book is lectures on the English comic writers, which came out in 1819. Then in 1821 he brought out the dramatic literature in the age of Elizabeth. So these are some, Table Talk is another work of his, and he's best known really for his collection The Spirit of the Age, which came out in 1825, that basically was about all these literary characters and a kind of literary portrayals of all his friends and contemporaries that he put together in the form of essays. So these are these literary portrayals that he had put in The Spirit of the Age, that talks about these writers as characters. So in a way, he's consistently engaged with the here and now, the questions of the day, and in this particular roundtable pieces, he's not really dealing with them at a but he's not frivolous, he's not, if I may say, he's not really we've been discussing how English essays is non-serious, etc. He is actually serious in these essays. I mean, if you're an idealist and a romantic, it is very difficult to be also satirical, right? I mean, perhaps only Byron could pull that off, right? But other than that, it's very difficult, because they had their intent and intention, and their commitment is so strong, and they're so passionate about the work that they are involved in, about the power of poetry or the power of the arts. They so believe in it, that kind of conviction is there, which doesn't bring in any kind of superficial layer of meaning in any of their works. And I think that is very interesting about Hazlitt, and that is also something that sets the Romantic essays apart from their predecessors. The 18th century essays, they dealt with humor, satire, and they would nudge these people and make you laugh. But the English essays have already moved towards idealism, passion, etc. So they are not necessarily satirical, or they can be humorous at best, but they are not caustic in their approach and in their criticism of things around them, the way some of the essays in Tatler and Spectator show. The Statler and Spectator, you can see some essays of these, of Addison and Steele, where, they would take a dig at somebody. Now here, Hazlitt seldom takes dig at anybody. He might talk about humorously about something, but he is not going to take up arms against anyone or criticize somebody. He's more into discussing a particular topic and, again take you towards a sort of a sublime or elevated sort of feeling, emotion that you find in most romantic poets. And therefore I feel the English essay, when it comes in the hands of the romantics, then it also changes its tenor.
There is one thing that you have emphasized, and I'm struck by that point, that you are calling him a romantic essayist. Now this is a term that I have not come across generally in English criticism, but if he is a romantic essayist, then he would be stressing imagination. But in these essays, as you point out, he is talking only about the surface reality of life, and he has levity, but he may not have non-seriousness. Of course, romantics can never be non-serious. But even if you have that levity, and that goes at the cost of the manners of the age, then whether you like it or not, people will start criticizing him for his manners criticism, and that is superficial. What do you do?
No, I don't think he's superficial, and I never said that he's superficial. I said
his
that
critics would say it.
No, but the idea is that it is not even levity in his case. I mean, the only place that you see levity in Hazlitt is perhaps in the letters that he wrote to his beloved, and they became the the talk of the town, and people criticized him for that. But other than that, in this essay, I don't see even levity there. I think he is pretty serious in his approach to these issues, and I in fact don't think that there is levity of this kind in in the English essay, in fact, particularly for the writers who come later, for instance, Hazlitt and others, they are they are talking about, like for instance, the Round Table, which is the collection that I wish to speak about, is a collection which is, its subtitle is a collection of essays on literature, men and manners. Right, so it's still taking in, that's why I said he is probably a kind of a bridge between the 18th century and the 19th century essays, because he's still following the the tenor of the Addison Steele model, wherein men and manners, they are the topics of their works, but he's bringing in the imaginative angle, he's talking about the power of the arts, right, and justifying the power of arts, of the art, or artistic enterprise or creative activity, and prioritizing it over materialism or any kind of utilitarian philosophy. So, even though he understands that utilitarianism is not entirely bad, he talks about making it mechanical is a kind of a foolish enterprise for him. So, I think that he's able to blend both the 18th and the 19th century ethos in his works, and which is why he's not like, for instance, Addison and Steele in that sense, even though he wants to write these essays modeling them on the Tatler and the Spectator, but it changes when it when he starts dealing with the subject, because in his in his approach and in his analysis, you find that the topic is taken up with all its with all earnestness, and maybe earnestness is the word and not so much seriousness. So the tone may be still, in the sense, casual and conversational, but the approach is very earnest. He believes in what he is trying to explain in those essays. He leaves it, again, the essays, like the predecessors, they are also open ended. They don't necessarily end with a kind of a zealous statement or something. They are open-ended at times, and the writer leaves it on the reader to make one's own informed decision. And yet I feel that there is a direction that Hazlitt shows by taking a stance on it. So it's not to say that they are just objective statements. It's not to say that the writer has no position. The writer takes a position, but then leaves it open for the reader to make one's own decision. So I think I would like to place him in this category. I don't think he's into levity or non-serious comic stuff of that kind. So this is where this is how I see Hazlitt. And just to give you a sense of how Hazlitt, what is the purpose of this round table book that he talks about. Now, he defines the purpose of the work and the choice of the subject really by suggesting that, that he wants to talk about the everyday aspects of life, but they want to leave aside the dictatorial manner that the essayists have taken up in the 18th century. So the idea is not to speak from some pedestal, from a solitary space, but from a very conversational, discussion oriented model, and which is why the title, The Round Table. The Round Table, the moment you think of the round table, you think of round table in association with people who would sit around that round table. A round table cannot be something that you would associate with the writer's desk that is meant to be a personal desk. So it's not a kind of a personal projection of things. In fact, this book was planned as part of a discussion that these friends had together, and they thought they will all contribute essays to this book. But it so happened that this book wasn't taking shape the way they thought, and because of the events of the French Revolution and other things, these people were in the throes of things. So finally it was left on Hazlitt to write most of the essays. So out of the 52 essays that are there in this book, The Round Table, 40 essays were written by Hazlitt, and the remaining 12 were written by his friend Leigh Hunt. So and the others obviously did not join in. These were just these two people, but the maximum number of essays in this volume came from Hazlitt. So the idea is that the round table, the title The Round Table in itself suggests that these were supposed to be discussion essays. These were not supposed to be solitary musings of a particular writer. And that's the main point of the round table. So this is what I thought that one should be aware of as far as the round table is concerned.
Yes, I think the point is very well made, and it's very convincing also that there is a kind of a distinctness about the essays called Hazlitt, and the 19th century that way is a different kind of a century, and he is able to make a bridge with the 18th century, but he asserts his own values which are different than the values adopted by the 18th century satirists and all. I think that's a point well made, and it should be accepted as a very valid point. And friends, we are at the close of the first part of the discussion, where Hazlitt's character as an essayist, his temperament as an essayist, has been very well laid out by Dr. Bajaj. So till then, one has to wait, and we start with the second part soon enough. Thank you.